After years of regulatory chaos, the U.S. Senate is finally moving on comprehensive crypto legislation. But here's the thing, they have about 3 weeks to get it done, or this whole thing could fall apart. Again.
And what makes this moment different is that all the pressure points are converging at once. You've got a government shutdown deadline on January 30th, midterm elections in November that could flip control of Congress, and a crypto industry that's basically been operating in legal limbo since 2017.
So today we're breaking down what's actually in this bill, why the timing is so critical, and what happens if it fails. Because this isn't just about crypto, it's about whether the US can actually govern emerging technology. Okay, so let's set the stage. The House passed something called the Clarity Act back in July with strong bipartisan support. Now the Senate is scrambling to get their version through committee markup. That's the process where they actually debate and amend the language. And they're aiming for mid-January. Why has this taken so long?
The core problem is that nobody can agree on who should regulate what. Right now, the SEC and CFTC have been fighting over crypto jurisdiction for years. The SEC says most tokens are securities and fall under their authority. The CFTC says they're commodities. And meanwhile, companies are getting sued left and right because the rules keep changing based on which regulator wakes up angrier that day.
That's the turf war everyone talks about. But what would this bill actually do?
It tries to draw a clean line. The bill would give the CFTC primary oversight of spot crypto markets, meaning the actual buying and selling of digital assets. The SEC would keep authority over things that are clearly investment contracts, like token sales that promise future profits based on a team's efforts. That's the Howey test, basically.
Right, the old Orange Grove case from the 1940s that somehow still dictates crypto policy.
Exactly. And here's where it gets interesting. The bill includes something called the DeFi Carve-Out. It says that if you're just writing code or running a decentralized protocol without acting as an intermediary, you shouldn't automatically be treated as a regulated entity.
Wait, so if I deploy a smart contract that lets people trade tokens peer-to-peer, I'm not suddenly running an exchange?
That's the intent, but here's the fight. Some lawmakers think this carve-out is too broad and will create enforcement loopholes. Others say if you don't protect developers, you're basically criminalizing code itself. One industry group put it bluntly, there is no market structure legislation without developer protection, because without developers, there is no crypto.
That feels like one of those issues where both sides are right. You need to protect innovation, but you also can't let bad actors hide behind the "it's just code" defense.
Exactly, and that's one of the three big sticking points holding up the bill. The other two are stablecoin yields and something technical called state preemption.
Let's start with stablecoins. What's the controversy there?
So the banking industry is lobbying hard to make sure crypto companies can't pay yield on stablecoins. Traditional banks see this as unfair competition. They have strict reserve requirements and capital rules, while crypto companies have been offering 4% or 5% on dollar-backed stablecoins. Banks want a level playing field.
But from the crypto side, that would kill one of their most popular products.
Right, and the irony is we already passed stablecoin legislation last year, the Genius Act, which Trump signed in July. But banks are trying to use this market structure bill to add yield restrictions that didn't make it into the original stablecoin law.
So it's a lobbying battle disguised as a technical policy debate?
Welcome to Washington.
Okay, what about state preemption? That sounds boring, but I have a feeling it's not.
It's actually one of the most consequential parts of the bill, and almost nobody's talking about it. The Clarity Act includes language that would prevent states from regulating digital commodities once they're defined as such. It's basically saying, once the federal government decides something is a commodity, states can't impose their own rules.
And states are not happy about that.
No, because states have historically been the first line of defense for consumer protection. State regulators caught a lot of fraud that federal agencies missed. The bill's supporters say you need preemption to avoid a patchwork of conflicting state laws. Critics say it strips away important oversight, especially for things like front-end manipulation or local consumer protection.
So you're trading regulatory clarity for regulatory power. And depending on your perspective, that's either progress or a dangerous rollback.
That's exactly the tension, and it's why this markup process matters so much. When senators sit down in mid-January, they're not just voting yes or no, they're actually editing the language, tightening definitions, potentially adding carve-outs or conditions. The details matter enormously.
Let's talk about timing, because there's this weird convergence of deadlines happening at all once. What's the political calculation here?
You've got three pressure points. First, Congress has to pass a federal spending bill by January 30th, or risk another government shutdown. That means crypto legislation could easily get sidelined if budget talks go sideways.
And we just had a 43-day shutdown a few months back, so that's not a hypothetical.
Right. Second, you've got midterm elections in November that could flip control of Congress, and a crypto industry that's basically been operating in legal limbo since 2017.
So if they don't get this done by, what, mid-summer?
Probably sooner. If they don't have a bill locked down by the August recess, it's probably dead until 2027. That's why you're hearing people say this is the window, January through maybe June or July.
And the third pressure point is just the industry itself, right? Companies have been threatening to leave the US for years.
Yeah, and some already have. Coinbase just suspended services in Argentina, but the bigger story is how much crypto development has moved offshore. Senator Lummis keeps saying unclear rules have pushed digital asset companies offshore, and she's not wrong. If you're trying to build a crypto business, why deal with SEC enforcement actions when you can just incorporate in Singapore or Switzerland?
So this is an abstract policy debate. There's real capital flight happening.
Exactly. And the Trump administration has made crypto a priority. David Sachs, the White House crypto advisor, keeps saying we're closer than ever to getting this done. There's political will. The question is whether the details can actually get resolved.
Okay, so here's what I'm stuck on. Even if this bill passes, we still have this fundamental problem where the technology is global and decentralized, but the regulation is national and centralized. Does any of this actually fix that?
No, and that's the elephant in the room. You can create the clearest possible rules for how the SEC and CFTC regulate crypto in the US, but that doesn't stop someone from deploying a DeFi protocol from a laptop in Bali that Americans can access with a VPN.
So what is the bill actually solving?
It's solving the problem of legal uncertainty for companies operating in the US. It means Coinbase knows what rules they have to follow. It means a startup can talk to lawyers and VCs without worrying that their token will be classified as a security 2 years later. That's huge for institutional capital.
Right, because pension funds and banks aren't going to touch crypto if the legal framework keeps shifting.
Exactly, but you're right that it doesn't address the deeper architectural challenge. If crypto is supposed to be permissionless and global, then jurisdiction-based regulation is always going to be playing catch-up.
Is there a better model, or are we just stuck with this mismatch?
This is where things get interesting from an infrastructure perspective. One approach is to build systems where compliance is embedded at the protocol level, not imposed afterward by regulators. You'd have identity verification, transaction monitoring, and jurisdictional rules baked into the smart contracts themselves.
That sounds dystopian.
It can be if it's done badly, but think about it this way. Right now, compliance happens at centralized choke points. Exchanges, banks, payment processors, they're the ones checking IDs and reporting suspicious activity. If you move that logic on-chain, you can actually preserve more privacy for most users while still meeting regulatory requirements for large transactions.
And is anyone actually building this?
Some chains are experimenting with this. Internet Computer has done some work with this with chain key cryptography, which allows for cryptographic identity at the protocol level without exposing user data to centralized servers. But it's early, and there are real trade-offs. You're adding complexity. You're potentially creating censorship mechanisms.
Right, because if compliance is at the protocol level, who decides what's compliant? You're just moving the centralized control to whoever governs the protocol.
That's the core tension, and it's why most of the industry is still focused on this legislative approach. Get clear rules from governments and then figure out how to comply. It's not elegant, but it's practical.
So let's game out the scenarios. What happens if this bill passes?
If it passes early in 2026, you'd see an immediate shift. Institutional money starts flowing in because there's clear regulatory clarity. Companies that left start coming back. You'd probably see exchanges listing more tokens because they're not terrified of SEC enforcement actions. And the focus shifts from will we have rules to how do we comply with these rules.
And if it fails?
Then you're looking at another year or two of uncertainty, maybe longer, depending on how the midterms shake out. Companies keep building offshore. The US continues to lose its advantage in financial technology. And frankly, other countries start setting the global standards instead.
Europe with MiCA, Singapore, even the UAE, they're all moving faster than the US right now. And once a regulatory framework becomes the international standard, it's really hard to displace. So this is basically the US's last chance to lead on crypto regulation.
I wouldn't say last chance, but definitely a critical window. And the stakes are bigger than crypto. It's about whether a democratic system built for 20th century institutions can adapt fast enough to govern 21st century technology.
We'll find out in the next few weeks.
We will.
That's it for today. If you want to follow this story as it develops, we'll be tracking the markup session and breaking down whatever comes out of it. Thanks for listening.